Okay, good morning everyone. So nice of you to come. Thanks for being here. My name is Till and I will be speaking today about multi-word expressions and why I believe they are the spice of language learning. But before starting, I want to quickly thank the organizers of the gathering for having me and for organizing everything. This is my second time I'm at the gathering. Last year I had a total blast, it was great. But this also means that probably not so many know me yet. So I want to start by giving you a quick recap of who I am, what I've been up to, and how this relates to multi-word expressions, the topic of today. So I've been doing a master in artificial intelligence and natural language processing at the Université Paris-Saclay in Orsay in France. And this has been for the last year, and it has been a great experience, very international, with students from all over the world. So just an anecdote, when I invited my mates for my birthday to a nice crêperie in Orsay, it turned out that everyone was from a different country. No country was repeated. And this is something I really love, which is also why I love being here with you. But that also meant that I didn't speak so much French, even though I was in France. My courses were in English, a lot of my social life was in English. With my wife, who came with me, I speak Russian, with my family back home, German. So not so much space for a new language. But this luckily changed when I started a research internship at the Laboratoire Interdisciplinaire de Sciences du Numérique on the topic of automatic identification of multi-word expressions in the context of language learning. Here I found great French colleagues, so I could finally practice just in everyday life my French. And one day, in the first weeks or so, we got together and were making lunch plans. And I remember the crêperie I've been to for my birthday, and I was saying, oh, je connais une bonne crêperie à Orsay, ils ont une bonne offre pour déjeuner qui n'est pas trop cher. But somehow I couldn't convince them. And we ended up going to an average pizza place. Bit sad, but a couple of minutes later, I remember what I could have said instead. I could have just said formule midi, which, as anyone who has been in France will know, is a whole concept. It's a business lunch or a lunch offer. Usually you can find it in any restaurant. And just by saying formule midi, I would have expressed the same thing that I tried to say by 9, 10 words, that it's a good offer, that it's a couple of dishes from their main menu, the same quality standard, but at a good price point. And if I just had been that much more expressive, I might have had time to add another argument and convince my friends to go to this place. So what this little story, I hope, conveyed is that multi-word expressions, or I will often just say MWEs, are very expressive. They can help you to better communicate, and they are just essential if you want to understand what natives are saying, because they use them all the time. And if you don't believe me yet, that hasn't been the first multi-word expression for Mulmidi. I actually already used all of them just in my introduction, just to give you some pointers. And even more so, they are everywhere. They are like sand at the sea. At this point, I might mention that apart from being a student and researcher, I'm also a developer of a reading app for language learners, which is the screenshot from. And here you see just how many multi-word expressions are in the first 2 paragraphs of this novel that probably everyone has read. And it's not only in English. If you look at the German version, you also have multi-word expressions in different places, in French, or in Russian even. But the interesting thing is that multi-word expressions, even though they are so pervasive, they occur in completely different places in different languages, and they are so unpredictable. So at this point you might say, okay, what do you actually mean by a multi-word expression? So why don't you just say idiomatic expression or idiom or fixed expression or anything? Well, and I owe you a definition, but what I also owe you is to give you a quick overview of what my presentation is about. It will consist of two parts. First, we will get down in the weeds, and I want to share a little bit the perspective on multi-word expressions in the area of natural language processing. And don't worry, it won't be too technical. It's really just to motivate why I talk about multi-word expressions and what are the challenges from the technical point of view, because many of these challenges are the exact same that we as language learners face. And then the second part, we will take up the fight with the giant and take up the challenge to really understand what we as language learners have to do with multi-word expressions and how we can master them. Okay, so let's get down in the weeds. And just a last final preliminary remark. When I talk about natural language processing, I mean the intersection of computer science and linguistics. So it's how we can, with computer science, better understand natural language and process it. It's a branch of artificial intelligence, and it uses a lot of machine learning as its main techniques. But let's get to the point. Lass es uns auf den Punkt bringen. Here's a formal definition we use in our field. It's by Baldwin and Kim, a good introduction of multi-word expressions in natural language processing. And I will draw a couple of examples from them. So not everything that I come up with is from myself, just to give you a reference. Okay, but let's take a look at it. So multi-word expressions, MWEs, are lexical items that A, can be decomposed into multiple lexemes, and B, display lexical, syntactic, semantic, pragmatic, and or statistical idiomaticity. Wow. Let's look at it step by step. So a lexical item. It just means you have an item that has a single meaning, and it's basically just a part of your language lexicon, or you would just say part of the vocabulary. And usually you would say it's a single word, so gâteau, for example, in French, but also traffic light, referring to the thing that controls the traffic, would be a lexical item. Anstelle von, tomar el pelo, all these are lexical items because they have one single meaning. They can have multiple, but then they would be counted as multiple lexical items. So multiple lexemes, that's easy. It just means at least two words. And here you might say, okay, but what about languages which just concatenate everything? Famously in Germanic languages, Käsekuchen, cheesecake. Is it still a multi-word expression? And here, for our talk, I will consider them as a multi-word expression because they have clear constituents that make up the whole meaning. What about languages that don't even use spaces, like Japanese? There you can look at if you can identify different parts in a word that still have as part of the vocabulary. So fukogo, hyogin, a compound expression. Fukogo and hyogin are both parts of the lexicon, so you can consider them as a multi-word expression. But bucho, the department head, where bu is department, but cho doesn't occur on its own, would not be a multi-word expression. So, and then finally, idiomaticity. It just means it's a deviation from the basic properties of the components of the expression. Or to make it easy, just something surprising, something that breaks the rules, or an exception. And before we look at these subcategories, let me just motivate why we speak about multi-word expressions. And here I want to make a point more about science and life. So in science, you split everything up in basic things, and then you look at how these basic things combine with each other. So you have a tree, and you just see leaves, you just see a trunk, you just see the branches, and then you might get a higher theory of how they combine with each other. But life is different. Life is just it's gradual. There are no clear boundaries. You just see the tree as a whole, and you don't split everything necessarily up into parts. And this is exactly what happens in natural language processing. We split everything up into basic words, like here, ete, udivlajet, studage, nie ljudi, nie mogут zatsibia vruki. It's surprising that even smart people can't take themselves by the hand, can't get it together. And zatsibia vruki would be a multi-word expression, meaning to get it together. But when you just look at the single words, you are surprised how this additional meaning comes about. Whereas in language and life, we have an idea of what it means to get yourself together, and then we would arrive at a different way to think about these things, because we start from the whole and then come to the parts. Okay, so let's quickly go through different types of idiomaticity. You have lexical, which just means that the components are clearly defined but not part of the lexicon. Here an example from German, nichtsdestotrotz, meaning nevertheless, or je mehr desto weniger, the more, the less, the fewer. And desto is not a German word that you would meet outside of an expression. So here we have this kind of idiomaticity. We have syntactical idiomaticity. That means that the way words come together to form an expression don't follow the standard syntax. By and large is the coordination of an adverb and an adjective. And normally, and should always combine things of the same type. We have pragmatic idiomaticity, meaning that in a particular context, the expression has a different meaning. In German, we have the command klar Schiff machen, referring to the situation on a sailboat when after a maneuver, you have to clear up all the ropes that lie around and you have to make klar Schiff. So in this particular context, these combinations have an additional meaning. We have statistical idiomaticity, which also you will all know as collocations. So there's a high frequency of word combinations that is just very typical to the language. You would probably never say spotless timing, but impeccable timing. Yeah, that's more easygoing. Also the word order. In English, it's always black and white. If you say Citizen Kane is the greatest white and black movie of all times, you would not only don't be understood, you would also do injustice to a whole genre. And interestingly, in other languages, it's the other way around. So Chiricú is the exact opposite, white and black, blanco y negro in Spanish. And then finally, probably the most interesting one is semantic idiomaticity, meaning that the meaning is not compositional. You can't derive at the meaning just by looking at the parts. There's always some kind of figuration, some abstract idea behind it. An example, the Mittelweg, the middle way, is not literally a way between at a junction in the middle, but it's a compromise. A negative example would be aller-retour en français, to and fro, where basically you still get kind of the meaning by going there and having a return. So this would have other types of idiomaticity, but not semantic. Or then viajar na maionese in Portuguese. What does it mean? Okay, we will come to this back later. Okay, so why to break your head? Začem lamat golovu. Why is this difficult in natural language processing? And I will now go very quickly through a couple of problems, just to give you some ideas, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. So there's the disambiguation problem. Multi-word expressions can either have the literal or the metaphorical sense. So Kim made a face at the policeman. Okay, she wanted to know him or express her emotions, but if Kim made a face in pottery class, she would literally make a face out of clay. We have the idiomaticity problem, meaning that a combination that looks very regular compared to others would have an additional meaning. So you kick the football and everything is easy, but as soon as you kick the bucket, meaning to die, suddenly this additional meaning crops up. We have a flexibility problem. Some expressions are more flexible than others. You always must say by and large, but if you would say by and larger, it would not be correct. You can say, he kicks, I kick, kicked, kicking the bucket, but if you would put it in the passive voice, the bucket was kicked, it would not mean anymore that someone died. And then you have some kind of expressions that are just very, very flexible. You can put it in every tense, every voice. Hand in the paper, hand the paper in. You can even move stuff around. The paper was handed in. So you have to capture this and know this. We have the problem of discontinuity. Sometimes you can put things in the middle of an expression. So with particular regard to, with due regard to, but you cannot say in particular addition to something. You can do internal modifiers to take a long and relaxing bath, but the expression would just be take a bath and everything else is like not an inherent part of the expression. Or in German we have these separable verbs where something can prop up at the very end of the sentence. Morgen geht die Sonne 6:30 Uhr direkt über der Bucht auf, and you have to put these things together. There's a proliferation problem, meaning that some expressions basically follow a frame that is so common, like take a walk, take a hike, take a trip, that you do not want to treat everything individually. You kind of want to abstract away from it, but then where to draw the border? There's also an overgeneration problem. If you just look at examples, like in American English, it would be the telephone booth, in British English, the telephone box, and then you might think, okay, hey, this is a pattern, there should also be a telephone closet. But that's not the case. You have a frequency problem. How often should I use multi-word expressions to not sound like a dog? This is a text generated by GPT, where I said just use as many expressions as possible in French, and you see there are more than one on average in each sentence, and that would just not sound natural anymore. And then finally, multi-word expressions, as many phenomenon in language, follow the Zipf's law, the Zipfian curve, meaning that if you order all expressions or words by their frequency, how often they occur, this means that the, do I have a pointer here? Here. That the more frequent words are vastly more frequent than the less frequent ones. And this is a problem, but also a curse, a blessing. Because if you just know the top frequent words or expressions, then you can also already understand 90%. But to actually then learn a lot of them, to learn the last 10%, you have to know a lot and you have to treat a lot. Okay, so let's move on and ramasse le gant. Let's fight the giant and have a look at what it means for language learning. What I really like about the European framework of language learning is the focus on what you are able to do on competencies. And they speak about lexical competency, which is also the main thing we need to have when dealing with multi-word expressions. And lexical competency is the knowledge of and ability to use the vocabulary of a language. So it's not enough to just know about them, we need to be able to use things. And with this in mind, I want to get rid of the very formal definition in the beginning and be more pragmatic here. From a learner's point of view, I would say multi-word expressions are vocabulary items of 2 or more words that we need to learn as a whole so that we can use them effectively. And then, the only difference to regular words, which are also just items of the vocabulary, is that, there are more of them, and we need to learn them together. Okay. Now, where is the dog buried? Where And don't worry, we won't bury this sweet Cocker Spaniel. What's the point of all of this? So what do we actually need to do as language learners with multi-word expressions? Well, first of all, we need to be able to recognize them. Here's a Spanish sentence from a journal. El otro parte fundador de uno de los movimientos literarios más interesantes del siglo, Jacques Kerouac, lleva 25 años creando malvas. Okay, some kind of founder of a movement, quite important, who has been growing mallows, a type of flower, for 25 years. Okay, maybe he retired and just takes care of his garden. What a nice life. But what it actually means, and then we have to understand it once we found that there's a multi-word expressions, this expression means to be dead. So not only do we have to recognize when there's something fishy going on, we then have to get the meaning. Then the next challenge is that we have to correctly produce these kind of expressions ourselves. So we have to know that malva must always be in plural. And here, Spanish speakers, please correct me if I'm wrong. It should also be used in the progressive form. So he did grow mallows would not be correct, but he is growing or has been growing malvas would be. And then we have to know, okay, how to communicate effectively with them, in which context to use it. Would it be appropriate when I'm reading a eulogy? Oh, our beloved father is now growing mallows. I need to know when people expect this expression from me and when to use it. Okay, so now let's look at different multi-word expressions and different challenges. We have conjunctive and prepositional multi-word expressions, like in order to, on behalf of, which are really just super important to structure our discourse, to order our thoughts, to indicate what we are talking about. But the good news is that they are quite easy to recognize. You see when there must be some kind of connector. There are not so many in the languages. Just in French, there are like 400 of them. I'm not so happy about that. But you can just learn them, and they are also very plentiful in learners' materials, so you will probably learn them. Then there are like these nominal, like nouns, bus driver, swimming pool, where there's just a huge number of them. Like in the French dictionary, there are 60,000 of them. So there are a lot, and they can have surprising meanings. Like, did you know that a Geisterfahrer, a ghost driver, yeah, it's someone who goes against the correct direction on the highway. You would not expect this if you just look at ghost and driver. And you just need nouns to talk about the world, about things. But on the bright side, often you can guess from context. I mean, swimming pool, okay, it could be either a pool that is swimming or a pool for swimming, so there are not so many options. And then you can easily guess. There's not so much variations, and technically speaking, so just nouns and the number you have to put in. So this follows generally the rules of just nouns. And like if you just look at the number, a lot of them are specific to a particular domain. So if you're in technical terms, if you're a part of a profession, then you have to know the expressions that are part of that vocabulary. But you don't need to know all of them. Okay, so now a different beast, like verbal multi-word expressions. There are phrasal and prepositional verbs such as put off, put on, put out, put away. In English, it's just pervasive. You can basically combine any preposition with words, and it has a different meaning. There's huge variety. We need to understand which particle or preposition is correct. And there can be many subtleties in meaning that we as learners have to get. Then we have light verb constructions like to give a lecture, donner une lecture, where basically all the meaning is just in the noun. And we have to, so it's not so hard to understand them, but it's hard to use them correctly because we need to know which verb goes with which noun. And this is especially difficult if you know multiple languages, because why it's to give a lecture, but to hold a lecture in German. Okay, and then finally the end boss, idiomatic combinations or the classical idioms. So if you have this sentence in German, warum sich im Job die Beine ausreißen, wenn nichts Besonderes verlangt wird? Why oneself on the job the leg tear out when nothing special expected is? You wouldn't get it initially. Okay, the second part, when nothing special is expected, that's okay. But then how do you find the meaning of this? First you might try to think, okay, maybe I don't know all the words by themselves. Let's look them up. So ausreißen, 4 meanings. So, but there's no mentioning of a whole expression. But still, I know tear out kind of seems fitting. I might look at Beine. And okay, interesting. In southern Germany, they still use Beins to call bones, but this doesn't help me here. So yeah, legs. And then I might look at job, but okay, job is just an Anglicism, so I know what this means. What to do then? Okay, I might put the whole expression in a dictionary, and then in dictionary I finally find sich kein Bein ausreißen. But that doesn't fit exactly, it's the negation. But I can see, okay, to not make a lot of effort, so I can infer, hey, it means to work hard. So why should I work hard on the job when nothing special is expected from me? Okay, you might say, Till, you're making this too complicated, I will just use a translator. So deep L wouldn't get it. It would say, why bust your legs on the job if nothing special is required? So yeah, quite explosive. Google Translate makes a quite good job. So why bend over backwards at work if nothing special is required? So yeah, translators are catching up and they are getting better at this hard type of expressions. But if you don't want a translation in English, then you are still screwed for a couple of years. Maybe it catches up. Okay, so now finally get to the juicy part. Practical strategies, how to have it at your fingertips. And I have a confession to make. I can't tell you a magic recipe. In the end, they are still magic lexical items like words, where you have just to use your normal techniques like flashcards, spaced repetition, all these kind of things in practice to really understand the subtleties and to be confident in how to use them. But there are a couple of positive things. So what we can still do, and I hope to have made this with my presentation, is to have awareness about multi-word expressions and how they work. So when you know what to pay attention to, you are not so much surprised. You can more easily guess how different things come together. You can also put things in order and understand the different types of expressions to have an easier time remembering them. And obviously what we all love to do is you can compare multi-word expressions or expressions about multiple languages. Why is this way in one language and another way in another language? And then of course, multi-word expressions are great to learn with humor. Many expressions have a quite absurd or surprising image behind them. So it's just a joy to learn them and then to use them. You probably have all been in a situation where you've just, mastered the basics of a language and you're talking to natives, and then you just remember this one expression that just exactly expresses what you want to say, and everyone laughs at you and is just so happy that you use this native expression. It's just a great feeling. So what can we do to learn them? If you look at the literal meaning and quite understand it, then it's usually funny and surprising. So, viajar na mayonesa. Just imagine someone going through the mayonnaise. It's quite an absurd picture. And then, it's someone who says something silly or crazy. Or the Czech expression, vzet nohy na ramena. And you can imagine someone where his legs are going over the shoulders, and yeah, obviously it means to run away. Or in Danish, and please don't mind my pronunciation, deren ingen kopar isen, there is no cow on the ice. And yeah, it's cold there, there's a lot of ice, so you can just imagine, okay, if there's no cow on the ice, there's nothing to worry about, everything is easy, nothing will break. And then I have also something that I want to show you. Can we switch? Oh, perfect. So I've been working on an application, a reading app for language learners called Linguist, where the interesting thing is you can select words and it knows the base form. So it will always give you être in this case. And if you want to say, I want to learn it, it will mark this word whenever you meet it again, regardless of the form. And what I'm working right now as part of my internship is to develop the functionality that it will automatically find multi-word expressions like par exemple, c'est pas la peine. So you could directly the meaning, oh, that's not useful, that's not necessary. And then you can get a translation out of, like in the context it's used and not worth it. And it would even recognize to have the head in the clouds, avoir la tête dans le nuage. Let's see what the translation, it might be literal, it might be, has its head in the clouds. And I think it's even the same expression in English. So that's good. And yeah, when I then have my vocabulary, I can always look up where I saw this expression. Or here, enterrement demain, mourir, aujourd'hui, maman est morte, the famous first sentence of The Stranger, L'étranger from Camus. Okay, let's switch back to the presentation and finish off. Yeah, so unfortunately I didn't finish the multi-word expression feature yet for the conference. I'm still having a project with the University of Warsaw to evaluate it and hope to have it live in 1 or 2 months. So if you want to give Linguist a try and sign up, you will receive newsletters and keep up to date. It's mostly for English and French right now. There are a couple of more languages, but they still have only basic support. So, in a nutshell, how could I not use this expression that every English learner has to learn? What I want to get across. So, multi-word expressions, they are just incredibly diverse. There are so many of them, so many surprising things. They are incredibly expressive. They are so juicy. You can add a lot of flavor to your language by using them. And then they make each language unique, which I like most about learning languages. Because, okay, there are some words that just exist in a language and have just a particular meaning because they refer to a cultural context. But there are also many words like stool or desk, things that just refer to a thing that you also know from different languages. But then how they come together, these basic building blocks, and form surprising meanings and senses is just what makes language learning such a joy for me. So yeah, with this, many thanks, and I'm happy to answer your questions and also learn your favorite multi-word expressions, or you have a technique for learning and memorizing them or using them that you want to share. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, I said I want to read them myself. Is there a relation with terminology? So, Mara, like, where are you? So, by terminology, you mean the specific vocabulary used in a domain, or? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, terminology could also be just specific words, like not multi-word expressions, but they tend to be multi-word expressions because single words are just so great building blocks to stick together and make an additional meaning that will be used in a specific domain. So natural language processing is a term used in computer science. And okay, if you know it's computer science, so processing is computational processing, and then you know natural and language, you get the meaning in the domain. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ben, for putting this up. So I would love to talk more with you about multi-word expressions and learn your favorite expressions from your languages. I also have a quiz designed where you have to guess meanings from languages you don't know. There might be a couple of people here at the gathering who might break the quiz I prepared by just knowing all the languages. But I have quite a vast array. So if you're interested in this and more people like it, I might have a garden session if you're interested in it. If not, no, never mind. Linda, while learning languages, how do you implement learning multi-word expressions? So I think a lot of multi-word expressions you already do the right thing. So especially verbal, phrasal verbs to put off. You wouldn't put and off on different flashcards if you're using flashcards. You understand they belong together. Either you found the meaning or you inferred the meaning or someone told you. So you learn them together with your favorite techniques. But what you really can do with multi-word expressions is always look at the literal sense. If you have a good understanding of the literal meaning and have an image in your head, and then apply like the figurative meaning that is in there, you have already a great memorization technique and have a easier time remembering them. Okay, multi-word expressions equals chunk equals lexical bundle. Okay, this is exactly the kind of jargon where multi-word expressions are very pervasive. So yeah, depending on in which context you talk about chunks and lexical bundles, I would say it's similar. I mean, in natural language processing, multi-word expression has just this very broad definition. So it means the same. Do idiomatic multi-word expressions get easier to recognize the more you know? Well, unfortunately not, because that's the whole point of them. They are surprising and they break the rule, which is also why it's so hard to process them individually. When you know a lot of multi-word expressions, you still might know nothing about the next one you meet because it's against the rule what happens there. Oh, I like Esta grande malvas, pushing up daisies. Yeah, that's a nice English expression that has a similar meaning. Thank you for that. Any plans or ideas for classifying register of multi-word expressions? You mean as part of the application? Yeah. The question from my point of view would be, okay, where to base this from, where to get the data from. But by just having good explanations and then saying, yeah, this is idiomatic, not idiomatic, this is part of the idea. But I kind of have to rely on the dictionary to just tell me if it's idiomatic or not, or the context. But the idea is, when you use linguists and you see the same expressions again, you will then have a huge selection of contexts where you've already seen it. So then you can kind of make your own intuition, when should I use it and where. does linguists have a spaced repetition system or way of recording multi-word expressions? There's no spaced repetition inside there. The idea is that you can then export it to use it in whatever system you use. Because I think there are already great flashcard systems, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel. The philosophy of linguists, or my idea is that you can just enjoy reading and focus on reading. When I read in foreign languages, I always struggle with, okay, do I now look up every word and really want to learn as much as possible? Or do I just want to understand and enjoy the text? When I just go over things the way I just guess kind of what it means and I still enjoy it, then I don't learn as much. And the idea with linguists is to hit the sweet spot where you have just enough information to really to get it without being tempted to go to an external dictionary and then look up 5, 10, 15 different meanings and then be tempted to, oh, there's something else interesting, let's click on there. So the idea is to have everything in one UI so that you can understand things and then go on and read and then have a review phase later. Can you talk a bit more about the technical aspects and NLP techniques you use to detect and process multi-word expressions at linguists? So, how much time do we have? So there are harder ways and more naive ways to approach these things. So you could use language models to have an embedding of the sense and then try to infer, is this a multi-word expression? Is there some idiomatic meaning from there? But the thing is, you have the Zipfian curve, meaning that you don't have a lot of examples usually for the rare multi-word expressions. So you don't have a lot of positive and negative examples where you then can learn, okay, you have a different sense vector here than here, so there must be idiomaticity. And the other thing is, usually, multi-word expressions tend to be used in the idiomatic way, way more than in the literal. It's just, I don't know why, but if you know that this is a multi-word expression, you tend not to use it in a literal way. So this is hard to learn. What I'm doing in the back is having a lot of example sentences and then learning a couple of filters from this to capture the variety of forms that this multi-word expression can appear in. If you want to learn more, just talk to me whenever. And then, is linguistics supposed to be explored when self-studying a language, or do you have ideas how to use it within a group learning experience? Right now, it's more on self-studying and for advanced or intermediate learners, because when you just have to look up every word, it's not the best tool. I have ideas about using it as a group, so sharing texts or maybe having a teacher view to see which things were clicked on by your course, so you can then pick it up in a class. But if you have a use case for this, please come and talk to me. I would love to learn about this because I don't have a really good understanding for the situations where this would be useful, that I can really tailor this towards this. So yeah, just come up to me and let's have a chat about this. Thank you so very much. If there's interest for a workshop, just come to me and tell me. Then I will ask if we can find a time slot where there's not so much going on, and just have a group with 20 people or so in the garden. Otherwise, enjoy the gathering, and thanks so much for coming.